Hi, and welcome to the Essential HR podcast. I'm your host, Brian Gorman, and today we're talking with Kim Spence from RBN Insurance, and we're talking about trends in the HR industry, particularly as it relates to COVID-19 and open enrollment. And looking forward to talking to Kim today. Kim, welcome to the Essential HR podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me today, Brian. I always enjoy talking to you.
Absolutely. Same here. And Kim, to get started, why don't you introduce yourself to those that don't know you, maybe a little bit about your background and your time in the HR industry and what you currently do today.
Yeah, so my background has been focused in the HR and benefits industry. Over 25 years. Yikes. A great deal of that time was spent in corporate America with global organizations. Originally, I started helping smaller businesses control their cost and mitigate risk in the PEO space, the professional employer space, and which was a combination of payroll and benefits. And then after the healthcare change in 2012, I decided that there was a great deal of opportunity for innovation in employer-sponsored group health plans, especially for self-funded groups. So I made that switch, and I'm happy I did, and glad to be here today.
Very cool. Perfect. Now, to get started, maybe let's talk a little bit about how your world has changed since the pandemic started back in early March. Maybe start there and talk about how it's affected you and your business, and go from there.
Yeah, so March 16th, it seemed like the world stopped. I was actually in a meeting or going into a meeting, and everybody, they were in a crisis with all of this, and what they were going to do, and the building was shut down. So it's like, wow, it felt like the world stopped. So all of a sudden now we're all shut down. Everybody was working from home. Our vocabulary changed. Essential employees, COVID, coronavirus, furloughed employees.
Sure.
President Trump made changes to the FMLA laws. The Paycheck Protection Program was launched, and the funding, who was going to back this, when were the banks going to do it? Everything went virtual. We just had to adapt to that. And maintain communication, but it was absolutely, I think it was just as crazy in every industry as it was for the insurance industry, for sure.
No, absolutely. And you said a key word in there, furloughed employees. Maybe speak to what the difference between a furloughed employee is and one that laid off.
Yeah,
Yeah, for lack of a better, that'd be
that
great.
thing, when they first started talking about that, I thought, what the heck? So a furloughed employee was considered like a non-essential.
Mm,
Uh, so in manufacturing, they could have been in manufacturing industry, not making anything that was considered essential. And then they gave us a list of guidelines, and then employers had to lay those folks off. They weren't officially laid off or terminated; they became furloughed,
mm,
and that was the new term. But so they, in that status, when the laws changed, they were still eligible for benefits, but the challenge was that eligibility was based on how many hours they worked. And if they weren't working those hours, they weren't eligible. So,
mm.
so that's a furloughed employee. They maintain status, but they're COVID laid off.
Mm. Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about, I think you mentioned communication, and I think you're right on there. And that's very, very important in today's HR and business landscape. And I think when you talked about trends a little bit, maybe talk about some of the trends you've noticed, particularly in your business and in your world, and how that's affecting the way you do your day to day.
Yeah. So what we're doing right now, I mean, usually we'd meet at a coffee shop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no doubt.
And now we're doing virtual Zoom meetings,
Hmm.
working from home reality. I think that the trends are for employers are going to be how to drive employee engagement, and
Mm,
then reduce the stress, because we've got a blended life now. So work is office and office is work, and it's creating stress. I think a good trend for employers might be um, you know engaging that, and because employees who feel supported by their employers report they're more satisfied, they feel valued, engaged, they're productive. And if employees aren't supported, reports of those feelings drop significantly. We need to do this to improve productivity, um, increase engagement, keep loyalty, reduce stress and burnout. Key objectives might be to try and manage both through and beyond the pandemic, so we can recover.
mm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think with the trends piece, just doing online presentations just seems to be, what we're doing. I know that. So you and I are both located in Northern Indiana, so we are somewhat open. I think we're getting close to where we're almost back to normal, but I've seen an uptick in more personal meetings going on site. So I don't know if you've noticed that too, and what you've seen is, I think it's a good mix of meetings like this and then going out to see someone too.
Yeah. So I've been giving people the option,
Hmm.
it's whatever they're comfortable with. So I'll say, where we can do this virtual Zoom. I'm happy to come out and meet you in person, and we will just practice, safe
Hmm.
social distancing uh,
Sure.
during that process, and just to make sure the accommodate if we're gonna have more than 2 or 3 people in the room, to make sure we have space around the table for everybody to stay 6 feet apart. But it's up to them. And I think the initial shutdown, we were completely isolated,
Right.
and now it is now we have that option still. But
No, I think you're right on that. I think that, in my opinion, I think that once those that get out ahead of it a little bit and we're having meetings on site again, I think if we can do that, take advantage of that, mix this into your day to day. But I think it's important to still ask the person, hey, would you want to meet on site, and let's do that. So I think that's really important.
yeah.
Um, and I think you mentioned the furloughed piece earlier when it came to challenges, but what other challenges have you noticed?
Oh my goodness. Well, with that furloughed piece, there was so much. There's so many questions there. I think in my industry, that seemed to be the big thing, because what employers were, they were coming to us and saying, "What should we do? Should we don't want our employee to lose their health insurance because they're furloughed. We don't want to lose this employee.
Hmm.
Cobra's too expensive. They were eligible, but it was expensive. Should we subsidize this for them? Um, you know, can we just keep them on the plan the way it is?" And the temptation was there to do that, but then you run the risk um, of either having claims dropped, or they could have their policy revoked altogether. So those were big concerns. Other than that, we were talking about you know compliance, and I think at that point we're referring over to the experts, the attorneys, the compliance attorneys. We
Hmm.
were looking to them for advice and saying, what do we do now?
Hmm.
How do we advise our clients like this? And what are the rules? And it was a moving target. And understand, like the CARES Act, um,
Oh, sure.
it was just overwhelming. So you had to call in all these consultants, spent a lot of time in meetings talking about all of these different things. And that was a big challenge. But I think at this point, um, I think we've got our heads around it. We've got a good understanding of it, and we're able to give it, the best advice to the clients.
Hmm. Kim, when it comes to benefit open enrollment, I know that's a hot topic right now in the HR world. What challenges did this create from just the benefit open enrollment standpoint? And another part to that question would be, how can an HR manager today really help their employees get a handle on that process? Because as you know, it's hard to get into an organization and present and go through the annual any changes that happened in the plan, and kind of explain and had that personal touch. The Zoom is great, right? But how can an HR department really get out ahead of it and tackle it head on?
Yeah, and that's the next big challenge.
Mm,
Now that we've got all this other stuff behind us, we're looking into uh, our biggest open enrollment season.
mm-hmm,
January 1st is a renewal date for most everybody. Here and there you have sprinkles throughout the summer and the fall, but primarily everyone is looking at January 1st for that date. And I think HR folks and business leaders should consider perhaps a more active open enrollment strategy. I think the temptation to leave the benefit selections unchanged from the previous year may be the easiest thing to do, but I don't think it's necessarily, this is my opinion, the
mm-hmm,
best approach. I think, providing a more active enrollment uh, would have more requirements attached to it. I mean, um, the employees would have to review each benefit. They'd have to make their unique selections, but it also offers them an opportunity to have a better understanding of the plans, the
mm-hmm,
options, the implications of those plans. So, um, like the technology connection, you could use support tools like Jellyvision
mm-hmm,
uh, that would make the process possible. The employees would uh, take like what their expected healthcare costs would be, their status, their income, all those factors into consideration, and they'd get the opportunity to really understand their benefits, perhaps for the very first time. And I think the virtual meetings, we could do it virtually because we can't do open enrollment in group settings anymore.
sure.
Um, or we'd have to, if your larger clients, we'd have to do too many
Mm-hmm,
to make that possible. So I think utilizing, making use of technology and one-on-ones. Not everybody's going to want to do Zoom, and some people are going to want more hand-holding through the process. But I think the managers might have to get involved a little bit. We're all in this together, and we're all going to have to be a part of the solution.
yeah, that's a great point. I know both you and I have spent, and I currently am in the HCM world. And when it comes to benefit open enrollment, I know a lot of there are a lot of solutions out there, right? And you talked about it with the Jellyvision reference, but do you see a lot of employees today taking advantage of solutions where they can go online and they can enroll themselves? Or what are your thoughts around that? Or is it more still a manual process? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think the thing, with you and I in our industry, and we've
Mm-hmm,
worked together for a long time, and we've kind of, we were presenting solutions that, took employees from recruitment to retirement, and the technology changed, right? The
mm-hmm,
technology changed, and it wasn't just payroll and HR anymore, which were the simple employee deductions. I mean, that has made such an impact. It's taken a while. I think it was considered a luxury for a long time, and I think that this pandemic has it's not a luxury. It's become more of a necessity. So I think the connection is definitely there, and having the applications to connect to
mm-hmm.
technology is going to be critical. I think, and that's going to be the key to success for a lot of the mid-size. This is mid-size that I'm referring to
Yeah.
primarily. That's going to be the key to their success in open enrollment. Is going to be proactive on the top side, um, and embrace that technology and bring it in. It's not a luxury anymore.
So you mentioned the data flow. So maybe explain that in a little bit more detail where, I'm an employee. I put my information into my benefit system, or I have my HR department do that for me. And we both know what a carrier feed is. Maybe you can explain what that is, but how does that process work from beginning to end where, I'm an employee putting that information in and it flows all the way to my provider, right?
Yeah. So it just makes open enrollment a whole lot easier, and it'll allow for a virtual presence. So
Mm,
tool can be used as an educational process, kind of was referenced earlier, where employees for the first time would have an idea of what their health care plans and options are. Um, that just brings me to another thought. They won't have the rates yet, but
mm-hmm,
that'll be
mm-hmm,
with it. But all that information then can be electronically generated into a payroll platform.
Hmm.
And then the HR person doesn't have to have an Excel spreadsheet that, they need a magnifying glass to read to put it all in there. And the employees will have a clear perspective. I mean, this sounds like an infomercial and I really didn't want to do this, but it is, it makes it's almost critical in the open enrollment process this year. And I think that's going to be the biggest change, the biggest challenge is going to be for folks that haven't been comfortable switching out of that space. Uh, it's, it's almost going to be a necessity to do that.
Oh,
But made me think about the rate side of it and the challenge part of it. The HR managers aren't going to have the rates until probably October, November.
sure.
Um, so probably a good idea would be to have the enrollment materials, at least that part of the process, whether they do it paper or electronically, so the employees can at least kind of look at their structure and see what's out there, and then just add the premiums and the per pay period deductions after they get that information.
Absolutely. I know we talked a little bit about a benefit coach role. Do you see HR really being that for their employees now? I know obviously they do have that, I guess, responsibility to know the benefit plans and be able to talk to their employees about them. But I think, in my opinion, I think, coaching employees that maybe have not talked about enrolling in their benefits, but all of a sudden now with COVID, it's important and they want to be able to enroll in those benefits, but may not know much about them other than an initial meeting. How can HR really I guess best practices would you suggest to be able to connect to their employees?
Um, yeah. So can you repeat the first part of that? Because I think that was
Yeah, I think just talking about a benefit coach. I mean, I know that role is something we've talked about, and just you talk about business coaches, right? But how can a benefit coach that really just talks about their benefits within an organization, how can they best engage their employees, and how can they best make them aware of how they can take advantage of benefits?
yeah, benefit. So there's three parts to this as I see it. Just from being in the industry and working with folks. So first of all, we start out with the business leaders, and
Hmm.
they've got a whole different benefit coaching than the HR, and then down to the employees. It's like a funnel down or trickle down.
Sure.
But the first step is to meet with the employers of the organization or the owners of the organization, um, and coach them through the changes, give them the options, find out what their objectives, what's important, you know, what do they want to see happen here, and then bring those options to the table for them, and something that that fits good into their organization in meeting those goals. Not a cookie cutter. It's not a one size fits all. So you start there, and then once that strategic process has been started with leadership,
Hmm.
that now is communicated to HR. A lot of times, HR is involved in that process, and then we put together a plan for the rollout. How are we going to roll this out? What are we going to include? What are the platforms in doing that? How many employees? Where are they at? They could be all over the globe has become small. I mean, everybody's, we're multi-state organizations very commonly, sometimes globally. So, what's that going to look like?
Hmm.
Um, and then our final step is the communication to the employees and those materials, using technology for educational tools, um, and then sitting down with them and helping them best understand their options. So benefit coaching in this open enrollment period
Hmm.
is critical, because I think I said it earlier. I think the temptation is going to be to leave it the same and to just roll it over. Hey, here's your options, same as last year. Just click yes, or check the box and sign here. But I think we're missing an opportunity to really engage our employees, uh, and use this process to do it.
Absolutely. Fantastic. um Kim, how can someone that may be interested in some of your services, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, yeah. So if someone wanted to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
uh, and I'm also on the RBN website, Facebook, Instagram. You can You can find so all my information is listed, and I'd be happy to help anybody that I can.
Absolutely. Well, Kim, thank you for your time today. I think you did an incredible job of just encompassing the challenges that are out there right now in the HR world, the benefit open enrollment piece, and how HR directors can take some of those points that you brought up and put them into their daily practices. And I just want to again thank you for your time today, and look forward to having you on again. Certainly appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Kim.